of horror movies that I didn't see. I was busy, and I'm fatigued. Why? Fine. Fine, goddammit, I'll just review a bunch of movies that I didn't see in time to make full-fledged reviews, because I'm busy. Hello. Happy end of the year. So, I wanted to call this the Horror Gags Theater 2018 movie wrap-up. There were a bunch of movies that I didn't have time to see, a bunch of movies that I wanted to review but had no time because I was busy with college and life. I'm sorry I didn't have enough time to talk about a lot of films for almost 2 months because it was the holiday season, I was busy with college, I wanted to focus on my family and making presents, all that type of stuff, so bear with me here. So, as somewhat of a punishment for myself, I'm going to review a bunch of horror movies that I thought were interesting that I ended up researching or seeing. And if you think there was a movie I should have talked about here, or you think I should talk about in the future, leave a comment below. If I didn't get to it, it's because I wasn't interested, or I already have a full-fledged review of it coming out in the near future that I am still working on. So with that in mind, let's just go down the list. Halloween 2018, the movie that everybody was hyped about and the one that everybody anticipated, and it was okay. I liked it, but it definitely was something. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was pretty fun to watch. So, this film was pretty interesting to me considering the fact that the continuity follows right after the first original film, which I really liked, because the sequels to Halloween are just a whole other story that I will not get into. So, having the film open with the continuity of the first film, with Michael Myers getting caught and then him sneaking out and all that type of stuff, it works. It works for me. So I was happy that they didn't have to follow any of, like, the rules or, like, all the stuff that happened in the previous sequels. They just went straight for the jugular with the first film. And Jamie Lee Curtis's character, she... Admittedly, it was a bit overhyped. Like, I expected some pretty, like, badass stuff, considering she pretty much became a introverted, you know, gun collector who was very, very adamant about killing Michael Myers, and she just doesn't use that to her advantage, and yet she's supposed to be an icon for feminism. I'm not salty. I'm not salty at all. No, no. Totally not showing any, politicalness in this, unlike she did. Either way, characters were pretty interesting. It follows, you know, the lead's children. I forget her name. Again, okay, I'll admit this, I'm not huge on the Halloween series. It was just never really my favorite, so if I don't remember any of the names of the characters, you can burn me at the stake for that. But regardless, the only thing I wanted to see was Michael Myers doing some interesting stuff, and he does. I liked the stuff where he was in the asylum, and, you know, just trying to get a good firm talking to, and it evidently doesn't work. It kind of just reminded me of what kind of happened to his mask in the Rob Zombie version, which is probably the only version of Halloween that I've, like, grown to like compared to the vast majority of sequels that came out about it. I don't know, I think there was a lot of, like, connection or just a lot of inspiration from the Rob Zombie flick, at least for aesthetic-wise, especially for what they did to Michael. So, there's that. I was kind of peeved because this was supposed to be, quote-unquote, the final chapter in Michael Myers' life, and they pretty much advertised it as, oh, Michael's gonna get killed finally, oh, he's gonna get killed finally, and it just ends in the same way most of the Halloween films ended, which was no surprise, but I was still kinda mad. There also that one scene where Michael, like, kills, like, maybe a preteen or something, so it showed that he was willing to kill anything, but then a few scenes later, he goes into a house and he sees this, maybe, like, this baby, maybe, like, a few month old, maybe a year-old baby, and he doesn't kill it for some reason. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of sweet, he doesn't hurt babies, and then I remembered, wait, didn't he kill a child? I just thought that was so strange. Like, okay, so you'll kill kids over the age of 5, preteens, teenagers, young adults, adults, and so on, but newborn babies, oh no, no, off limits in my book. And as far as I know, Michael doesn't really have any connection with children. Does he? Does he? I don't remember. Either way, I will say that, yeah, the film had a lot of flaws and it kind of left me eye-rolling, especially around the end, but I thought it was pretty good. It kind of just gave me, like, a warm, fuzzy feeling of, yay, like, the slashers aren't dead. They can still be made into good movies. Because regardless of what people say, like, slashers are pretty, you know, damn impactful when it comes to horror movies, and I think they just kind of get the short end of the stick. So I hope maybe we'll get a more cohesive ending to Michael Myers' story instead of it just being overhyped as this powerful women gonna kill Michael Myers, and it just not going anywhere. He literally gets stuck in a house fire and then he escapes and they're wondering like, oh no, where did he go? Like, come on. Okay. Okay, I know I said months ago I was going to do a full-fledged review of Overlord. That didn't happen. Mainly because I only had time to see one out of the 2 movies that I was planning on seeing, which was Hellfest. And trust me, a review of that is coming out soon because I have a lot of good material for that. As for Overlord, admittedly when I researched it and saw bits and pieces of it, there wasn't anything I could really come up with that would equal like a really good comedic full-fledged review. Mainly because I expected one thing and then it just ended up being zombies. The whole thing to me just seemed like a whole World War II human experiment camp inside of a church and all that type of stuff, and that seemed interesting, but because they didn't want to make it too complicated and or too disturbing for the audience, I guess, I don't know why, they just basically delegated it to just zombies. And which is fine, I don't mind, it's just I'm kinda about zombies at this point considering how much zombie stuff I had to sit through for probably 3 to 4 years with The Walking Dead and a whole bunch of other stuff. Zombies are just kind of like old news to me, you know? And these zombies didn't necessarily do anything new or impactful, they were just kind of humans coming back to life. Kind of like Reanimator, just with a few upgrades because, you know, World War II, everything had to be war heavy. Because it would have been fine, it's just, I'm just over zombies, I think. I think I was just over zombies. Overall, the concept to me was interesting. I just like the whole idea of just like people getting ensnared into a hidden location and just having to deal with like these weird like humanoid monsters that are being experimented on. There's like this whole mystery and stuff behind it, but then after that it's just kind of there. You don't really know what else to take from it other than, oh no, they're trying to not get killed or turn into human experiments themselves. What happens next? Woo. But overall, I mean, it's an interesting film. I would probably maybe look into it more if I had time, but I guess I'm just kind of thinking this film probably doesn't really, like, blend in that much, let's say. I couldn't really think of a proper word. It doesn't really, like, work that much anymore considering, you know, if it's just another zombie film. Zombies are just kind of like in that gray area of you like it or you don't like it because it's been so overused in the past few years. And I don't know, I think I just wish it went more detail into like human experiments and just not having them turn into zombies, because World War II has a plethora of open interpretation of what they could do for human experiments, because the Holocaust was a very demented time and there is a bunch of stories of all the crazy stuff that people did to, you know, the prisoners and stuff like that. It's messed up beyond belief. Like, reality can be just as scary as horror movies with, like, you know, fictional elements added to it. If you just kind of mix those two together, it could work. Overall, I just really, you know, I was just kind of like, I really can't think of any good material for this, so other than that, it's just there. If you want to watch zombies with a lot of World War II old-timey aesthetic, then there you go. Other than that, it's there. It's just there. Okay, hear me out. Okay, This film is my aesthetic in a nutshell, and it was done in the best way possible. Like, there's no other way to artistically direct this film with the type of themes that you got without it being metal as hell. I loved it. Also, Nicolas Cage did a bomb performance in this film. Like, this is probably one of his better movies, like, ever. I have not seen Nicolas Cage, like, perform this one in a long time, so it was very refreshing. Actually, I think Nicolas Cage is kind of having a bit of a comeback this year, if you really think about it. But other than that, the film, I will admit, if you're not into, like, really trippy or abstract, artistic type of stuff with the visuals, then you're probably not gonna like it, because it's kind of hard to take in what's going on unless you really, really pay attention, because if you're just like semi looking at the screen, just like trying to watch it and just kind of have the story speak for itself, it's gonna be really weird. But I got it right away, mainly because I was just so invested in what was going on. Like, the visuals, the colors, the type, everything about this film was just all that I wanted and more, in a way. And I'm not usually an abstract person when it comes to films. I'm not the type of person to just go straight into abstract horror, mainly because it kind of just, it's hit or miss for me, because I've just never been an abstract person. I'm all about story, logic, all that type of stuff. But once you get a grasp on the story, it just fills it in for itself. It's just, and it's easy too, because it's just a typical revenge story. Like, Nicolas Cage is trying to get revenge on the guy that, you know, killed his wife, so he's going off and killing demons and dealing with the repercussions of this cult guy who is just taking a really bad trip on LSD. Like, it's just so fascinating, and it works so well. Like, this is more abstract stuff that I need. Abstract that has, like, logic behind it. Like, that's the artistic stuff that I wish could just mesh together more. And Nicolas Cage was just such a riot to watch. Like, compared to other films that he was in, his craziness and his weird delivery was used for the perfect archetype for the character he was playing. And it's just all of the creepy visuals and the demons that were, there were biker demons. Literal biker demons. And I love biker demons. I just, sorry, gotta calm down for a second. I just really, really love demons. And the designs of these ones, while pretty, you know, mediocre at best, there probably was a bit of a budget issue, but
they were very, very well made. I just want to see more films like this. I need more metal films in my life. The whole time I just had those, and I was just like banging my head because of just how cool and the whole thing was. And I was just nerding out with about the colors and the type and all that stuff. I'm just losing my mind right now. Okay.
So yeah, Mandy was good. If you haven't seen it and you want a really cool, trippy film that has Nicolas Cage losing his shit and a lot of blood, guts, and gore, and demons in it, you're gonna love it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I was extremely skeptical of the Suspiria remake, mainly because of just how much of a landmark the original film was, with its color and its artistic direction and its storytelling. So, looking into it, I was expecting just a shot-for-shot remake, but with just a more modernized, you know, visual thing. What I got instead was what I consider a darker and more interesting subject of storytelling compared to the original Suspiria. The original was definitely more of like a mystery in a way, because it was made in the 70s, so there really wasn't that much like complex storytelling that they could muster without it being too confusing for the audience. So with that in mind, the story was more of like the hero like escaping and beating all odds. While in this one, it goes into a much darker and interesting direction, and in a way, it just avoided a happy ending on purpose, mainly for the sake of more visual horror elements, which I really thought was interesting. It was a completely different story. Like, if you were expecting, like, something to be similar to or connected to the original, you're not gonna get it. Like, the names and stuff are pretty similar, and all that stuff, and the whole subject itself is similar, but how they tell the story is what really drew me in, because I expected one thing, and then I ended up getting something completely different, and it was surprisingly good. And I wish, you know, more remakes would kind of take this idea into consideration, instead of just, like, slapping the name onto a movie that's unrelated to the subject, or just trying to do, you know, the same thing but with a different limelight. I think remakes could get a lot more of a better reputation, especially in the horror world. Like, I don't mind horror movie remakes that much. Like, for me, they usually range between okay to just so bad it's good. Like, I don't really think much of it because you can never beat the original. I always take that type of thing with a grain of salt. But when it's good, it's really good. And Suspiria, I think, is a really good, you know, direction for horror movie remakes. So, if you're interested in, like, a very trippy subject that involves, like, witches and just dancing, very, very good choreography, I should mention. The choreography was really, really nice. But if you want to give more horror remakes a chance, I would really suggest watching this one, because this, to me, just kind of shows that, yeah, like, if a horror movie remake does a decent enough job, it can be really good, you know, and you don't have to take it as seriously as you need to, because I feel like a lot of people just kind of take remakes too seriously, where they think they completely destroyed a franchise just with that one remake, even though it barely does anything at all, especially if you've owned the original movies, have them, and stuff like that. You know, it's just an interesting, you know, subject matter. I myself just, you know, have always just been even with horror movie remakes. Like, they don't have to be completely, you know, they don't have to be completely over the top and stuff like that. I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah, this one was good. I'm actually, you know, I was genuinely happy that this film got remade, because the director was very, very, very good at his job, and the writers as well. So, yeah, I would highly suggest people see this one. It's really good. Upgrade was good, even though it was more of a thriller. I think the best horror movies always end up being thrillers, in a way, because you can't really have one without the other. You know, it's kind of like saying Venom is a horror movie, even though it's obviously an action hero thriller. You know, that type of thing. Upgrade is a pretty, you know, standard concept. You know, a guy gets an artificial intelligence locked into his head after he gets paralyzed. And it's done in a pretty mysterious way. Like, I kind of like the direction of more, like, futuristic subjects put into horror movies, because the whole idea of, like, getting an AI in your brain is kind of terrifying, because we don't know, like, we don't know when the robots are gonna take over, we don't know, like, how well the AIs, like, know our brains and stuff like that, and you don't know what's gonna happen. It's all just, like, one giant, what the hell is gonna happen? We don't know. And it was decent enough. I mean, it's definitely a lot more, like, action-packed compared to a lot of horror films, which to me is always just kind of a bust, because I expected, like, one thing to be talked about, but it always just ends up being another, and, you know, thriller and horror movie just really get, like, mixed up a lot, and I really wish it didn't. That's just my only, like, gripe about it. Other than that, it's pretty, you know, standard. Like, it would be a pretty, like, decent film to watch if you just want to get, like, a thrill with, like, a very, like, interesting horror element. You know, if you're just scared of the robot invasion and just fighting off the alien robot invasion that's trying to get us from space, and yeah, overall this film was pretty good. I really don't have that much else to say about it, because, I don't know, I just have, like, this weird thing of, like, avoiding most thriller movies that are just being shoved into the horror category because, ooh, it has scary music and stuff. But yeah, it's okay. The Predator 2018, that came out months ago and I'm just talking about it. Whoops. Okay, so compared to its predecessor, Alien Covenant, this one was much more fun to watch. Predator always just had a soft spot in my heart. I always found them much more entertaining to watch compared to the Alien movies. Like, I will always love the first two Alien movies, by bar none. They're probably one of my favorite sci-fi horror films of all time. But when it comes to, like, the later films and just, like, the recent ones that came out, they're just... they're there, I guess, for maybe some blind entertainment, I suppose. But The Predator, even though it had its flaws, I found myself just smiling and having a good time watching all the stuff that was going on, because there's a bit of a formula to it, but it's a good formula, in a way, I suppose. I just wish, like, you know, Predator just got more of, like, an interesting, like, background compared to Alien. Like, I want more stuff to come out about it. Like, what we got in this one was all that I could ever ask for. Like, I wanted, like, new predator monsters, I wanted new things, and they provided for the most part. It just had, like, a lot of things that just kind of made it, like, laughable to me. Like, they were trying so hard to do one thing, and then it just ended up being not as good, I suppose. I just wish this film just had a lot more, you know, going for it, and I just wish people would give it a chance, you know. Like, it's just in that gray area where you're just kind of like watching it like progress, and you're like, come on, you can do it, just go up a little higher. But I know the director was like really proud of it, and I know it's like a very like mixed sort of pool of how many people really like this film and stuff. I just had a fun time with it. I didn't look too deep into it. There were just like maybe a few things that I thought were like, but they're like nitpicks at best for me. I just had fun with it. I'd rather have like a fun time watching alien monsters just going through and wrecking stuff than what Alien Covenant was, admittedly. So yeah, there's that. The Possession of Hannah Grace. It exists. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. I went into this movie completely blind and unaware. Mainly because, shock of all shocks, guys, I don't watch exorcism movies. I know. It's pretty shocking. The only one that I know and love to watch the most is The Exorcist. Like, the movie that's labeled one of the scariest horror movies of all time. But, so when it comes to other like types of exorcism-based movies, they all look the same to me. I mean, it's literally, like, if you compare like 4 different exorcism movies, they all look the same. Like, at least to me anyway. Like, it just involves like a country girl in a poor house, or just a woman getting possessed by a demon, and then there's just a priest who's either having trouble with his faith or just trouble with something mentally or whatever, and he's told to go and stop the exorcism, and, you know, stuff happens next, I guess. The only other movie that really got my attention that involved an exorcism was either The Exorcist or The Rite with Anthony Hopkins. Because that film in itself was interesting enough, and since it was based on a true story, it kind of just, you know, kept my interest going. Other than that, a lot of people were making comparisons of The Possession of Hannah Grace to this other movie called The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which, from what I've researched, is a very, you know, well-received film that came out back in 2017. I didn't hear about it, I never knew it existed because I just don't follow exorcism movies, so when I saw this, I was just like, thinking, oh wow, this is a really good idea, like, a dead body that's still possessed by a demon, wow, that's really great, and it is, but I just wish it was made by people who actually knew what they were doing. Like, this just kind of spurs my disappointment in just writers when it comes to movies with decent concepts. Like, the past movies I've talked about, you've seen me praise the writers, because I believe they deserve all the credit they can get for all the stuff they do to make sure that a horror movie is great. But then you get something like this, and it just makes me wish that there was just people out there that would just take that one foot forward to, like, give that energy horror movies deserve. Because I feel like horror movies just get the short end of the stick when it comes to people and critics. Like, horror is an important genre to film. Like, without it, there would be a lot of elements missing in the filming world, and I just wish it wasn't as much of a laughingstock as it is. And this movie doesn't help that case. It's a good concept with a decent amount of horror elements and a lot of creepy stuff from the girl who plays Hannah Grace, which I always have a soft spot for actresses that are, like, contortionists in a way. I wish they deserved more credit and more roles, because all they're hired for is, evidently, exorcism movies, which makes me really sad. I was just disappointed with this film for just the sheer fact that it was just so poorly executed. And it just makes me wish I can just go into an executive, like, room and just tell these people, hey, we need to write the horror movie like this, we need to do this, this, and that, we need to get these people to work on this, because we just end up with messes, rushed, stupid messes like this, and then the horror genre just becomes a laughingstock all over again, and it bothers me. It bothers me. Yeah, just, I wish this film did better. It's like a parent, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in it. Because the girl who plays Hannah Grace is amazing. I thought what she did and all the effort she put into her body language and stuff to represent, like, her just being a demon-possessed dead body, that was fantastic. Like, if I ever make a horror movie about Alice the Moon Dancer, I would definitely hire that woman to be Alice, because the way she moves her body and contorts herself is so good. I just wish, you know, contortionist actresses to just get more credit than they deserve, because that stuff is very interesting to watch and it's fun. It makes me wish I could do it. But yeah, this film just exists. It's just a laughingstock, and it just makes me sad. It makes me very sad and disappointed that this year had to be ended on this note with this film, considering the roster of other films that I've talked about. Well, it is what it is. And finally, Cam. Fucking Cam. Okay, so this movie did a lot of things that I will praise the hell out of, because it actually ended on a very logical conclusion for an abstract concept. What do I mean by that? So, when I say Mandy was good in an abstract way, even though I don't watch that many abstract films, is because it stuck with the continuity. There's a continuity to it, and it just stays with it, and it's pretty bite-sized to understand. It doesn't jump between a more logical, like, symmetrical to an abstract sort of plane. It just sticks with the theme and just continues rolling through it throughout the end of the film. Cam pretty much, to me, almost was in that category of logical thing happening with abstract twist that had some metaphorical bullshit to it, but thankfully it wasn't like that. Basically, you got this girl who is a cam, which is just a lighter, just before you become a porn star sort of thing. And it kind of just reflects on, like, the craziness of the cam world, how, like, the audience will ask you to, like, physically harm yourself and stuff like that. And she does it, but she has, like, SFX stuff with her, and it's pretty funny, actually. She, like, slits her throat, and then it turns out it's just a fake prop, and she just takes stuff like, ta-da! Like, she was expecting her audience to say that. Logically, it's a bit far-fetched, but hey, I mean, kudos for being prepared for that stuff. I mean, that's pretty cool, honestly. But yeah, basically, she's just a camera who does anything to get fame. She's almost at the top of, like, being the most #1 viewed, like, cam girl on the site. She's trying everything she can to be popular. And then her account gets taken over by an entity, quote-unquote entity, that's just a version of herself. And she tries to figure out a way to get her account back in order to, you know, make sure she still has that fame, and it's her fame and not the person, you know, who's basically impersonating her. And to me, I was looking at this like, oh boy, it's like a manifestation of her death, it's just a ghost, it's some stupid paranormal bull crap that's just gonna take over the entire scenery and it's gonna stand out like a sore thumb. But no, it actually works. Turns out that the entity, quote-unquote, that was taking over her account was just an AI robotic program that just made a computer-generized version of her and was just going off of, like, things she already did. And truth be told, guys, that's actually a thing that happened. There was, like, a whole thing, like, I think it was either this year or last year, of, like, celebrities getting their quote-unquote, like, nudes leaked, but it turns out it was just an AI program where it, like, computer-generized a celebrity's face over footage of a porn star, and since it was so realistically rendered, people thought it was an actual thing, but it wasn't. Like, this is an actual thing. And I praise the hell out of Cam for actually using that to their advantage instead of making it like some paranormal ghost or like some manifestation of her mental state or some abstract stuff that I absolutely hate. That's mostly done in horror video games. I'm looking at you, Bendy and the Ink Machine. Saltiness aside, that's the one thing, like, put all, like, the awkwardness of, like, the whole, like, cam business and how, you know, this girl, like, acts with her job and how she's trying so hard to get to the top, especially with how the movie ends. Like, that whole concept to me just shows, like, there are people out there that can write clever twists in horror and what I need more of. And this was made by an aspiring filmmaker, I believe. This was, like, shown at a film festival and it just kind of grew over time because Well, mainly because it's just, a lot of people just compare it to Black Mirror, because it pretty much is just a lengthened Black Mirror episode because of, like, haunted technology and stuff like that, but regardless of how dumb the subject matter is and how dumb the lead chick is throughout the entire thing, I will praise it with that little speck of hope that it had, which was just the whole concept of what was causing the horror in the first place. And no matter how bad a movie can get, I will always praise one thing if it's deserved, and that is definitely deserved. So, there you have it. And there you have it, everybody. So, yeah, my apologies in advance for my hefty upload schedule. Life just kind of gets in the way when it comes to these types of things. Let's just hope 2019 will have a lot more interesting movies to review, good and bad. And I hope you all had a decent year. My year was definitely a struggle with my mental health. I think it was definitely a slow trail to just, you know, being happy again and just being happy with what I want to do with my life and my hobbies and stuff like that. And I just want to thank everybody who's just supporting me and liking this new content. It was definitely a rocky road, just a rocky start with, you know, trying to just talk about horror movies and talk about things that I love rather than all the bullshit that I was doing before. And I just want to thank everybody who has stuck by me and supported me and just, you know, believed in me, I guess. I know that sounds so cheesy and stupid, but it's true. I don't know what else to say other than, you know, thank you for just chugging along with me and and dealing with my depressed, stupid, over-emotional ass. I just hope 2019 will be the start of something new, and I hope to see you all on the other side. I have a lot of surprises in store. I'm gonna be posting a lot more art. I'm gonna try to see how many reviews I can get out monthly and all of that stuff, and I hope you all just enjoy it. So, thank you all, and I'll see you all again next time.